The sun dipped below the Silicon Valley skyline, casting a golden glow over the sprawling estate of Marcus Thorne, a name synonymous with innovation and ambition. At 42, Marcus was the poster child for the American dream, a tech titan who had transformed a garage startup into Thorne Industries, a global powerhouse revolutionizing artificial intelligence. His face graced magazine covers, his TED Talks garnered millions of views, and his net worth, clocking in at $3.2 billion, made him a regular on Forbes' coveted lists. His mansion, a sleek masterpiece of glass and steel, stood as a monument to his success, with panoramic views of the valley he'd conquered. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of polished oak and fresh lilies, but the warmth was superficial. Marcus stood in his office, a cavernous space lined with awards and prototypes, staring at a holographic display of Thorne Industries' latest AI project. His tailored suit hugged his frame, but his eyes betrayed restlessness. Across the room, his wife, Ilara, sat quietly, her auburn hair catching the light as she read a book on sustainable urban planning. At 38, Ilara was the antithesis of Marcus's public persona, reserved, introspective, and devoted to her community projects. She'd been his rock in the early days, coding late into the night beside him, but now, Marcus saw her as a relic of his past, a quiet anchor in a world demanding flash. "Ilara, you're coming to the Innovators Ball, right?" Marcus asked, his tone clipped as he scrolled through his tablet. "It's a big night. Investors will be there." Ilara looked up, her green eyes steady. "I'll be there if you need me, Marcus. But you know I'm not one for the spotlight." He sighed, barely masking his irritation. "It's not just a party, Ilara. It's branding. People expect to see us, the power couple." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "You mean they expect to see you? I'm happy supporting from the sidelines." Marcus's jaw tightened. "The sidelines don't cut it anymore. This is a new era. We need to project strength, glamour." He didn't meet her gaze, but the words hung heavy, a silent critique of her understated elegance. Ilara closed her book, her voice soft but firm. "I've always been your strength, Marcus. Even if it's not in a sequined gown." He waved her off, already distracted by a notification on his phone. Ilara watched him, her heart sinking. She'd built this empire with him, her algorithms the backbone of their first big break. But now, Marcus craved a partner who dazzled under the paparazzi's flash, someone who mirrored his hunger for fame. As he left the room, muttering about a late meeting, Ilara's gaze lingered on the empty doorway. The mansion felt colder, its opulence a hollow echo of the love they'd once shared. Outside, Marcus slid into his Tesla, his mind already elsewhere. He was headed to an exclusive industry event in San Francisco, where the elite gathered to sip champagne and broker deals. Tonight, he'd meet someone who embodied the sparkle he now craved, a woman who could elevate his image to the next level. The thought thrilled him, a spark of rebellion against the life he'd outgrown. As he sped away, the lights of Thorne Manor faded behind him, along with the woman who'd built it all by his side. The rooftop of the Four Seasons glittered under a canopy of stars and fairy lights, the air buzzing with the clink of glasses and the murmur of power players. Marcus navigated the crowd with ease, his charisma a magnet for investors and admirers alike. He was in his element, shaking hands and dropping buzzwords like disruption and scalability. Then he saw her, Serafina Dubois, a vision in a crimson gown that hugged her curves like a second skin. Her dark hair cascaded in waves, and her laugh was a melody that turned heads. At 29, Serafina was a social media sensation, her Instagram boasting 4 million followers, each post a carefully curated snapshot of glamour and influence. "Marcus Thorne, right?" Serafina's voice was velvet as she extended a manicured hand. "I'm Serafina. I loved your keynote on AI ethics. So visionary." Marcus's smile widened, his ego stroked. "Thank you, Serafina. I've seen your work online. You've got quite the presence." She leaned closer, her perfume a heady mix of jasmine and ambition. "Presence is everything, isn't it? In this world, you're either seen or forgotten." They talked for hours, the city lights a backdrop to their chemistry. Serafina spoke of brand collaborations and red carpet events, her world a whirlwind of glitz that Marcus found intoxicating. She was everything Ilara wasn't, bold, flashy, and unapologetically in the spotlight. As the night wore on, Their conversation shifted from business to something more personal, her hand brushing his as she laughed at his jokes. "You should come to my next event," she said, her eyes locking onto his. "It's a gala for tech influencers. You'd steal the show." Marcus hesitated, thinking of Elara, but the pull was too strong. "Send me the details," he said, his voice low. "I'll make it work." Back at Thorne Manor, Elara sat alone in their bedroom, scrolling through Marcus's public Instagram. A new photo caught her eye. Marcus at the Four Seasons, Serafina at his side, her smile radiant. The caption read, "Game Changers Unite. #Future is now." Elara's stomach twisted. She'd seen women like Serafina before, beautiful, ambitious, and temporary. But the way Marcus looked at her in the photo, his eyes alight with something Elara hadn't seen in years, sent a chill through her. She closed the app and stared at the ceiling, her mind racing. "He's slipping away," she whispered to herself. But Elara wasn't one to crumble. She'd built algorithms that predicted human behavior. She could predict her husband's. And if Marcus was straying, she wouldn't confront him with tears, she'd confront him with truth. The next morning, Marcus was already gone, leaving a note about a business trip. Elara found his tablet open on the kitchen counter, a calendar notification flashing. "Dinner with SD, 8 p.m., Nobu." Her heart sank, but her resolve hardened. She picked up her phone and dialed the one person she could trust to guide her through this storm. "Layla," she said when her sister answered. "I need your help." "It's Marcus." Layla's voice was steady, a beacon in the chaos. "Tell me everything, Elara. We'll figure this out together." As Elara recounted the photo, the late nights, and the note, Layla listened, her journalist's mind already piecing together a plan. "He's playing a dangerous game," Layla said. "But so can we. Let's start digging." Elara hung up, a spark of determination igniting within her. Marcus might think he was rewriting their story, but Elara was about to write a plot twist he'd never see coming. The Thorne mansion was a labyrinth of luxury, its marble floors gleaming under chandeliers that cost more than most people's homes. But to Elara, it felt like a mausoleum, each room echoing with the absence of the man she'd loved for 15 years. Marcus's late nights had become routine, his excuses flimsier with each passing day. "Client dinners," he'd say, or "urgent board meetings." But Elara noticed the details, the scent of unfamiliar perfume on his jacket, the way his phone buzzed incessantly with encrypted messages, the way he avoided her gaze when he returned home at dawn. She stood in their bedroom, staring at their wedding photo on the nightstand. Marcus's arm was around her, his smile genuine, her eyes bright with hope. That was a decade ago, when Thorne Industries was just a dream, and they were partners in every sense. Now, the photo felt like a relic, a reminder of a love fading into silence. Elara's phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a text from Layla. *Check his cloud drive. You know his habits. Look for patterns. Elara hesitated, her fingers hovering over her laptop. Snooping felt like a betrayal of her own values, but so did Marcus's secrecy. She logged into his cloud account, using a password he hadn't changed since their startup days, Elarastar. The irony stung. The drive was a maze of folders, but one caught her eye, personal_2025. Inside were photos from the Four Seasons event, Marcus and Serafina laughing over champagne. Another folder held travel itineraries, trips to Paris, Dubai, and Miami, none of which Elara had been invited to. Her chest tightened as she opened a subfolder labeled S.D. It contained receipts for jewelry, a penthouse rental, and a private jet charter. Each entry was a dagger, confirming what she'd feared. Marcus wasn't just straying, he was building a new life without her. She closed the laptop, her hands trembling. The mansion's silence was deafening, broken only by the distant hum of a gardener's mower. Elara sank onto the bed, her mind replaying their last conversation. "You're my strength," she'd told him. But strength wasn't enough for Marcus anymore. He wanted flash, and Serafina was his fireworks. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Layla. "You okay? Call me." Elara dialed her sister, her voice breaking as she spoke. "It's worse than I thought, Layla. He's living a double life." Layla's tone was calm but steely. "I'm coming over. Don't do anything rash. We're going to handle this like pros." An hour later, Layla arrived, her presence a grounding force. She set her coffee down on the kitchen island and looked at Ilara. "Show me what you found." Ilara opened the laptop, walking Layla through the evidence. Layla's eyes narrowed as she scanned the receipts. "This isn't just an affair," she said. "He's funneling company money into this. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen." Ilara's voice was barely a whisper. "What do I do, Layla?" "Confront him. Leave." Layla took her sister's hand. "You don't confront a man like Marcus without a plan. He's built an empire on strategy. We'll build a better one to bring him down." Ilara nodded, her grief giving way to resolve. The mansion might be empty, but her heart was filling with purpose. Marcus had underestimated her, and that was his first mistake. Layla's apartment was a stark contrast to Thorne Manor, a cozy, cluttered space filled with books, notepads, and the faint scent of jasmine tea. Ilara sat on the worn leather couch, clutching a mug as she recounted every detail: the photo, the receipts, the trips. Layla listened, her journalist's mind cataloging every fact, her eyes sharp with intuition honed by years of exposing corporate corruption. "He's not just cheating, Ilara," Layla said, leaning forward. "He's rewriting you out of his narrative. Men like Marcus don't just leave, they erase. But we're not going to let him." Ilara's voice wavered. "I gave him everything, Layla. My code, my time, my heart. How could he do this?" Layla's expression softened, but her words were firm. "Because he's weak. He's chasing a fantasy, and Serafina's feeding it. But you're stronger than both of them. You built Thorne Industries as much as he did, maybe more." Ilara shook her head. "I don't want revenge. I just want justice." Layla grinned, a glint of mischief in her eyes. "Justice is my specialty. Here's what we do. You gather every scrap of evidence. Bank records, emails, texts, anything that shows what he's doing. I'll help you decode the encrypted stuff. We're building a case, not just for you, but for the board, the investors, the world." Ilara frowned. "You think it'll come to that? A public fight?" "If Marcus wants to play in the spotlight, we'll give him one he'll never forget," Layla said. "But we do this smart. No tears, no tantrums. Just cold, hard facts." They spent the afternoon strategizing. Layla pulled out her laptop, showing Ilara how to access Marcus's encrypted messages using a backdoor she'd learned from a hacker source. "He's using Signal, but he's sloppy," Layla said, typing rapidly. "He didn't even enable disappearing messages. Rookie mistake." A message popped up, *Serafina, can't wait for Paris. "You're spoiling me, M." Ilara's stomach churned, but Layla squeezed her hand. "This is gold, Ilara. Keep going." By evening, they'd uncovered a treasure trove, emails to Serafina about rebranding Thorne Industries, bank transfers to offshore accounts, and a draft press release hinting at a new chapter for Marcus, without Ilara. Each discovery was a brick in the wall of their case, and Ilara's pain began to morph into determination. "You're not just his wife," Layla said as they sipped wine later that night. "You're the brain behind his empire. He forgot that. We're going to remind him." Ilara nodded, her eyes glinting with newfound fire. "What's next?" Layla leaned back, her smile sharp. "We go deeper. You keep playing the dutiful wife, keep him complacent. I'll tap my network, lawyers, auditors, tech experts. We're not just catching him in an affair, we're exposing a fraud." As Ilara left Layla's apartment, the San Francisco fog enveloped her, but her mind was clear. Marcus thought he was rewriting their story, but Ilara was about to take the pen. Back at Thorne Manor, Ilara transformed her home office into a war room. The walls were lined with sticky notes, timelines, and printed screenshots. Under Layla's guidance, she became a digital detective, her grief channeled into meticulous precision. Every night, while Marcus was working late, Ilara dug deeper into his digital footprint, her fingers flying across her keyboard as she archived evidence. She started with the bank statements, cross-referencing them with Thorne Industries' financial records. She found anomalies: $50,000 for a consulting fee to a shell company linked to Serafina, $20,000 for a diamond necklace, and $100,000 for a penthouse lease in Miami. Each transaction was a betrayal, but also a weapon. Ilara saved every file to an encrypted drive, labeled receipts. Next, she tackled Marcus's encrypted messages. Using Layla's hacking tools, she decoded a thread between Marcus and Serafina. Marcus, Ilara's too quiet for this life. You're the future. Serafina, I'll shine for you, baby. Just make sure I'm at the ball. Ilara's heart clenched, but she copied the messages, her hand steady. She also found flight manifests. Marcus had claimed solo business trips, but the records showed 2 passengers, Marcus and S. Du Bois. Ilara cross-checked the dates with Serafina's Instagram, finding posts from the same cities, Paris, Dubai, Miami, each captioned with vague, glamorous phrases like, living the dream. One evening, Layla joined her, bringing a forensic accountant friend, Priya. These transfers are sloppy, Priya said, scanning the records. He's using company funds for personal expenses. That's embezzlement. Ilara's eyes widened. Can we prove it? Priya nodded. With this? Absolutely. You've got a paper trail a mile long. Layla chimed in. And I've got a contact at the SEC. If we play this right, Marcus won't just lose his wife, he'll lose his empire. Ilara hesitated. I don't want to destroy him, Layla. I just want what's mine. Layla's gaze softened. You're not destroying him, Ilara. He's doing that himself. You're just making sure the world sees it. By week's end, Ilara's dossier was a masterpiece of evidence. Financial records, messages, itineraries, and even a video from a hotel security feed showing Marcus and Serafina checking in together. Each piece was a receipt, not just of infidelity, but of a man who'd underestimated the woman he'd vowed to love. As Ilara saved the final file, her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Innovators ball next week. Bringing the exec team. You okay staying home? Ilara stared at the message, her lips curving into a steely smile. She typed back, no problem. Have fun. She leaned back, the dossier glowing on her screen. Marcus thought he was in control, but Ilara was ready to flip the script. The Innovators Ball would be his stage, but it would be her triumph. The Innovators Ball was the tech world's Oscars, a glittering spectacle at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art where billionaires, visionaries, and influencers collided under crystal chandeliers. The air buzzed with anticipation, the scent of champagne and ambition mingling as drones hovered, capturing every moment for live streams and social media. Marcus Thorne had spent weeks planning his entrance, envisioning it as the moment to unveil his new persona, a tech titan untethered from his past, with Serafina Du Bois as his dazzling counterpart. He'd told Ilara he was attending with his executive team for a critical pre-event meeting, a lie that rolled off his tongue with practiced ease. In his penthouse suite at the St. Regis, Marcus adjusted his black tie tuxedo, his reflection exuding confidence. Serafina lounged on a velvet chaise, scrolling through her phone, her emerald gown catching the light. This is our night, Marcus, she purred, her voice dripping with certainty. The world's going to eat this up. You and me, the ultimate power couple. Marcus grinned, his ego inflated. You're right. Tonight, we rewrite the narrative. Thorne Industries isn't just tech, it's a lifestyle. You're the face of that. Serafina stood, her heels clicking as she crossed to him, wrapping her arms around his neck. And Ilara. She's not going to show up and ruin this, is she? He laughed, dismissive. Ilara. She's probably at home knitting or saving a community garden. She doesn't belong in this world anymore. Their laughter echoed, a shared delusion of invincibility. Marcus didn't know that Ilara had spent weeks preparing for this very night, her dossier of evidence a ticking time bomb. As he and Serafina stepped into their chauffeured Rolls-Royce, Marcus felt like a king, unaware that his throne was about to crumble. Meanwhile, across town, Ilara stood before her mirror, slipping into a sleek midnight blue gown that hugged her frame with understated elegance. Her auburn hair was swept into a low chignon, her green eyes sharp with purpose. She wasn't here to play the scorned wife, she was here to reclaim her power. Her phone buzzed with a text from Layla. You've got this. The board's on alert, and my team's ready. Show them who you are. Ilara replied, I'm ready. Time to unmask him. She slipped her encrypted drive into her clutch, the weight of her evidence grounding her. The Innovators' Ball wasn't just Marcus's stage, it was her battlefield. As the car pulled up to the museum, Marcus and Serafina stepped onto the red carpet, the flash of cameras blinding. Ilara, arriving separately, slipped through a side entrance, her invitation secured through a tech philanthropist she'd quietly supported for years. She blended into the crowd, a shadow among the glitter, her heart pounding but her resolve unshakable. Tonight, Marcus would learn that betraying her was the costliest mistake of his life. The museum's grand hall pulsed with energy, its walls adorned with interactive AI displays and holographic art. Tech moguls clinked glasses with venture capitalists, while influencers posed for selfies against a backdrop of Thorne Industries' logo. Ilara moved through the crowd like a ghost, her presence unnoticed by the elite who'd long overlooked her. She found a vantage point near a marble pillar, her eyes scanning for Marcus and Serafina. Her heart ached at the thought of seeing them together, but her mind was a steel trap, focused on the plan. Layla's voice crackled through a discreet earpiece. "You see them yet?" "Not yet," Ilara whispered, her gaze darting across the room. "But they'll make an entrance. Marcus loves the spotlight." "Stay calm," Layla said. "My legal team's on standby, and Priya's got the financial audit ready to go. When you strike, it's got to be surgical." Ilara nodded, though Layla couldn't see her. She sipped a glass of sparkling water, her composure a shield. Then, she saw them, Marcus and Serafina, descending the grand staircase like royalty. Serafina's gown shimmered, her smile calculated for the cameras. Marcus's arm was around her waist, his grin triumphant. The crowd parted, whispers rippling, "Is that his new partner?" "What about his wife?" Ilara's grip tightened on her glass, but she forced herself to breathe. She caught snippets of conversation as she moved closer, staying out of Marcus's line of sight. "Marcus, you're killing it tonight," said a venture capitalist, clapping him on the shoulder. "And who's this?" "Serafina Dubois," Marcus said, his voice smooth. "My partner in the next phase of Thorne Industries." Serafina beamed, leaning into him. "We're redefining what it means to lead in tech. It's about vision, not just code." Ilara's jaw clenched. Vision. Serafina wouldn't know a neural network from a news feed. But Ilara stayed silent, her eyes tracking their every move. She noticed Marcus's subtle discomfort when Serafina spoke, his smile tightening as she name-dropped influencers instead of industry leaders. He was starting to see her shallowness, but it was too late. He'd already bet his empire on her. "Ilara, you okay?" Layla's voice cut through her thoughts. "I'm fine," Ilara murmured. "They're playing their parts perfectly. Let them dig their own grave." She slipped into a side room, where Layla's team had set up a secure laptop. Ilara plugged in her drive, uploading the dossier to a cloud server accessible to the board and key investors. Every receipt, financial records, messages, patents, was meticulously organized, ready to be unleashed at the right moment. She glanced at her reflection in a nearby mirror, her eyes fierce. "This is for us," she whispered, thinking of the years she'd poured into Thorne Industries, only to be erased. Back in the hall, Marcus and Serafina mingled with the elite, oblivious to the storm brewing. Ilara returned to her vantage point, her heart a steady drumbeat. She wasn't here to disrupt their moment, she was here to dismantle their lie. As Marcus led Serafina toward the stage for his big pitch, Ilara felt a surge of adrenaline. The game was about to change. The red carpet outside the museum was a frenzy of flashing lights and shouted questions, a theater of egos where Marcus and Serafina shone brightest. Paparazzi swarmed, their cameras capturing every angle of Serafina's gown and Marcus's polished grin. She posed with practiced ease, her hand possessively on his arm, her laughter a performance for the crowd. Marcus basked in the attention, his chest puffed out as reporters lobbed questions. "Mr. Thorne, is this a new era for Thorne Industries?" a journalist called out. Marcus nodded, his voice booming. "Absolutely. We're not just building tech, we're building a legacy. And Serafina here is part of that vision." Serafina flashed a megawatt smile. "Marcus is a genius. I'm just thrilled to be by his side as we take this company to new heights." The crowd ate it up, but Ilara, watching from the shadows of the hall, saw the cracks in their facade. Serafina's words were rehearsed, her charm a veneer that wouldn't hold under scrutiny. Marcus's eyes flicked nervously when a reporter asked, "Where's your wife tonight, Mr. Thorne?" "She's supporting from home," he said, his smile faltering. "She's always been our biggest cheerleader." Ilara's lips twitched with bitter amusement. Cheerleader? She'd written the code that powered his empire. But she stayed silent, her earpiece buzzing with Layla's voice. "He's lying through his teeth. Keep your eyes on the investors. They're watching him like hawks." Ilara scanned the room, spotting the board members and venture capitalists in a huddle near the stage. Their expressions were guarded, their whispers intense. Marcus's decision to parade Serafina publicly was raising eyebrows, and Ilara knew it. She'd spent years cultivating relationships with these people through her philanthropy, her quiet influence a currency Marcus had never understood. On the carpet, Serafina leaned into Marcus, whispering, "They love us. We're unstoppable." "Don't get cocky," Marcus muttered, his voice low. "We need the investors' buy-in tonight. Stick to the script." Serafina pouted, her tone petulant. "I know the script, Marcus. I'm not just arm candy, you know." He forced a smile, but Ilara saw the tension in his jaw. He was starting to realize Serafina's limitations, but he was too deep in his own narrative to back out. As they moved inside, the crowd's applause followed, a hollow victory for a man who'd traded substance for sparkle. Ilara slipped closer to the stage, her heart racing but her mind clear. She overheard a board member, Clara Voss, speaking to an investor. "Marcus is playing a risky game," Clara said. "Ilara's the brain behind the AI. If she's out, I'm not sure I trust his vision." The investor nodded. "Agreed. Let's see how he handles the pitch." Ilara's pulse quickened. Clara's words were a lifeline, a reminder that her contributions hadn't gone unnoticed. She tapped her earpiece. "Layla, the board's skeptical. This is our window." "Perfect," Layla replied. "Let Marcus dig his hole. You'll bury him in it." As Marcus and Serafina took their seats near the stage, Ilara felt the weight of her plan settling into place. The red carpet charade was their moment of triumph, but it was also their undoing. Ilara was ready to step out of the shadows and into her power. The hall dimmed, spotlights converging on the stage as the MC introduced Marcus Thorne, the visionary behind Thorne Industries' next leap in AI. The crowd erupted in applause, but Ilara, positioned near the back, felt only a cold resolve. She watched Marcus stride to the podium, Serafina at his side, her smile a mask of confidence. Ilara's dossier was uploaded, her evidence primed, but she held back, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Marcus began his pitch, his voice smooth as he outlined his AI project, a system promising to revolutionize predictive analytics. Serafina stood beside him, nodding enthusiastically, her presence more decorative than substantive. Ilara's eyes narrowed as she caught Marcus's subtle glances at Serafina, as if seeking her approval. It was a stark contrast to the early days, when he'd looked to Ilara for intellectual partnership. "Marcus is losing them," Layla whispered through the earpiece. "The investors are fidgeting. Serafina's not helping." Ilara nodded, her gaze fixed on a group of investors in the front row. Their expressions were skeptical, their whispers growing louder as Serafina interjected with a shallow comment about AI being the future of fashion. Marcus winced, redirecting the conversation, but the damage was done. Ilara felt a surge of vindication. She'd always known Serafina's glamour couldn't mask her lack of depth. From her vantage point, Ilara saw Marcus introduce Serafina to a key investor, Victor Lang, whose portfolio funded half of Thorne Industries projects. "Victor, meet Serafina, my partner in this new chapter," Marcus said, his tone forced. Victor's eyebrow arched. "Partner? I thought Ilara was the genius behind your algorithms." Marcus faltered, his laugh strained. "Ilara's been supportive, but Serafina brings a fresh perspective." Serafina chimed in, her voice syrupy. "I'm all about branding the future, Victor. AI isn't just tech, it's a lifestyle." Victor's smile was polite but cold. "Interesting. I'd love to hear more about the tech itself." Ilara's heart pounded. Victor's skepticism was her opening. She tapped her earpiece. "Layla, Victor's not buying it." "I'm moving closer." "Careful," Layla warned. "Don't tip your hand yet." Ilara edged toward the stage, her gown blending into the crowd. She caught Marcus's eye for a fleeting moment, and his face paled, as if sensing her presence. But he recovered, turning back to Victor with a rehearsed pitch about scalability. Ilara's lips curved into a faint smile. He had no idea the storm she was about to unleash. She overheard another investor, Mei Chen, whispering to Clara Voss. "If Ilara's not involved, I'm pulling my funding. Marcus is all flash tonight." Clara nodded. "Agreed. Something's off." Ilara's resolve hardened. Marcus was unraveling, and Serafina's presence was only accelerating his fall. She clutched her clutch, the encrypted drive inside a silent promise of justice. This wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming her legacy. As Marcus wrapped up his introduction and moved toward the main pitch, Ilara prepared to step into the light. The standoff was set, and she was ready to play her hand. The stage lights intensified, casting Marcus in a golden glow as he launched into the heart of his pitch. Behind him, a massive screen displayed sleek visuals of Thorne Industries' AI, graphs and data points swirling in a hypnotic dance. The room was silent, investors leaning forward, their pens poised over notepads. This was the moment Marcus had banked everything on, his reputation, his future, his new life with Serafina. But Ilara, standing in the shadows, knew it was also his breaking point. Marcus's voice was confident at first, detailing the AI's ability to predict consumer behavior with unprecedented accuracy. "This is the future," he declared, gesturing to the screen. "Our system will redefine industries, from finance to retail." Serafina, seated beside the podium, clapped enthusiastically, drawing a few curious glances. She stood, unprompted, and added, "It's not just about data, it's about desire. People want to feel seen, and our AI delivers that." The room stirred, investors exchanging looks. Marcus's smile tightened as he gently nudged her back to her seat. "Thank you, Serafina. Let's dive into the technical specs." Ilara's earpiece crackled. "She's tanking him," Layla said, glee in her voice. "Keep watching." Marcus clicked to the next slide, a complex diagram of neural networks. He began explaining, but his words faltered as Victor Lang raised a hand. "Marcus, how does this scale globally? Your last project hit bottlenecks in cross-market integration." Marcus blinked, caught off guard. "We've addressed that. Our team has optimized the algorithms for scalability." "Optimized how?" Mei Chen interjected, her tone sharp. "Your white paper was vague on latency issues." Marcus's confidence wavered, his hands fumbling with the clicker. Serafina, sensing the tension, leaned forward again. "It's all about user experience," she said, her voice bright but clueless. "The AI feels seamless, like a personal stylist." The room went quiet, the investors' faces a mix of confusion and amusement. Marcus's jaw clenched, his eyes darting to Serafina with barely concealed frustration. Ilara, watching from the back, felt a surge of adrenaline. She knew this AI inside out. She'd written its core algorithms, spending sleepless nights perfecting its predictive models. Marcus was floundering because he'd relied on her work without understanding it. "Layla, he's crumbling," Ilara whispered. "The investors are turning." "Perfect," Layla replied. "Get ready to move. Your moment's coming." Marcus tried to recover, rattling off buzzwords about cloud integration and machine learning, but his answers were shallow, lacking the depth Ilara could have provided. Victor leaned back, his arms crossed, while May scribbled furiously, her expression unimpressed. The energy in the room shifted, the crowd sensing weakness. Serafina's smile faltered, her hands twisting in her lap as she realized she was out of her depth. Ilara stepped closer to the stage, her heart a steady drumbeat. Marcus's pitch was unraveling, and the investor's skepticism was her cue. She tapped her earpiece. "I'm going in after the next question. Be ready to send the dossier." "Got it," Layla said. "Make him regret underestimating you." As Marcus fielded another tough question, his voice cracking under the pressure, Ilara prepared to step into the spotlight. The pitch was his stage, but the truth was hers. The room was about to witness a reckoning, and Ilara was ready to deliver it. The grand hall of the Innovators' Ball was electric with anticipation, the crowd hanging on Marcus Thorne's faltering pitch. The massive screen behind him flickered with data visualizations, But his words were losing their luster, his confidence unraveling under the investor's probing questions. Serafina sat beside him, her emerald gown a stark contrast to her paling face, her attempts at charm falling flat. Ilara, positioned near the back, watched with a quiet intensity, her midnight blue gown blending into the shadows. She knew this moment was hers. She was the architect of the AI Marcus was struggling to explain. Through her earpiece, Layla's voice was a steady anchor. "He's drowning, Ilara. The investors are restless. You've got the stage." Ilara's heart pounded, but her resolve was ironclad. She'd spent years in the background, her algorithms the silent backbone of Thorne Industries' success. Marcus had taken credit for her work, parading Serafina as his new muse, but tonight, Ilara would reclaim her legacy. She clutched her clutch, the encrypted drive inside holding the evidence that would unravel his lies. On stage, Marcus fumbled a question from Clara Voss, a board member known for her sharp intellect. "Your latency projections are optimistic, Marcus," Clara said, her tone cutting. "Can you walk us through the optimization process?" Marcus hesitated, his smile strained. "It's a proprietary method. Our team has it under control." Serafina leaned forward, her voice overly bright. "It's about making the AI feel effortless, like magic." The crowd murmured, a mix of skepticism and amusement. Victor Lang, the key investor, shook his head. "Magic doesn't scale, Ms. Dubois. We need specifics." Ilara's lips curved into a faint smile. She knew the specifics, every line of code, every data point. She'd spent nights debugging the system while Marcus networked at galas. Her earpiece buzzed. "Now, Ilara," Layla urged. "They're ready for you." Ilara took a deep breath, her eyes scanning the room. The investors' faces were a mix of doubt and curiosity, the board members whispering among themselves. She saw Mei Chen, another investor, lean toward Clara, muttering, "If Ilara were here, she'd have answers." The comment fueled Ilara's resolve. She moved closer to the stage, her steps deliberate, her presence still unnoticed by Marcus. He was sweating now, his charm crumbling as he deflected another question. Serafina's smile was frozen, her hands fidgeting. Ilara felt a surge of power, not the flashy kind Marcus craved, but the quiet strength of truth. She tapped her earpiece. "Layla, send the dossier to Clara and Victor. I'm stepping in after the next question." "Done," Layla replied. "You're about to rewrite history." Ilara's gaze locked on Marcus, who was now rambling about synergistic innovation. The crowd's energy was shifting, their faith in him waning. She knew the AI inside out, its scalability, its limitations, its potential. Marcus had built his empire on her mind, and now he'd face the consequences of forgetting that. As he stumbled through another vague answer, Ilara prepared to step into the light, her quiet power ready to reshape the night. The tension in the hall was palpable, the air thick with the weight of Marcus's faltering pitch. The investors' faces were a mosaic of doubt, their notepads filled with question marks. Marcus clicked to a slide about global deployment, but his words were hollow, lacking the technical depth the room demanded. Serafina, sensing the tide turning, tried to interject with a quip about AI revolutionizing luxury, but it landed like a lead balloon, drawing a few stifled laughs. Victor Lang stood, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "Marcus, your projections assume zero latency across continents. How do you address cross-regional data bottlenecks?" Marcus froze, his hands gripping the podium. "We've implemented advanced caching protocols," he said, his voice wavering. "It's all in the pipeline." The room grew restless, investors shifting in their seats. Ilara, standing just beyond the stage's glow, saw her moment. She stepped forward, her gown catching the light as she moved into view. The crowd hushed, heads turning as she spoke, her voice clear and resonant. "Perhaps I can offer some clarity." Marcus's eyes widened, his face paling as Ilara approached the stage. Serafina's smile vanished, her hands clutching her clutch like a lifeline. The investors leaned forward, intrigued by the woman they'd overlooked for years. "Ilara," Marcus stammered, his voice barely audible. "What are you?" "I'm here to discuss the AI you're presenting," Ilara said, her tone calm but commanding. She turned to Victor, her green eyes steady. The cross-regional bottlenecks you mentioned are addressed through a distributed neural network with adaptive caching. Our system uses predictive load balancing to reduce latency by 47%, as validated in our Singapore trials last year. The room erupted in murmurs, Victor's eyebrows rising in approval. Impressive, he said. Why haven't we heard this before? Ilara's smile was serene but sharp. Because I've been working behind the scenes. I designed the core algorithms for this AI, including the scalability framework you're questioning. The crowd gasped, the board members exchanging stunned glances. Marcus's face was a mask of panic, his hands trembling as he tried to interject. Ilara, this isn't the time. It's exactly the time, she said, her voice cutting through his like a blade. She pulled a tablet from her clutch, projecting a detailed schematic onto the screen. Here's the data from our trials, including latency metrics and user adoption rates. This is the real vision of Thorne Industries. Clara Voss stood, her expression a mix of awe and vindication. Mrs. Thorne, are you saying you're the primary architect of this project? Yes, Ilara said, her voice unwavering. Every line of code, every optimization, came from me. The hall was silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Serafina shrank in her seat, her glamour no match for Ilara's intellect. Marcus's mouth opened, but no words came out. Ilara's mic drop moment wasn't just a revelation, it was a reclamation. She'd stepped out of the shadows, and the room was hers. Layla's voice crackled in her ear. You nailed it, sis. The dossiers with the board. They're ready to move. Ilara nodded subtly, her eyes locked on Marcus. The game was over, and she'd played it masterfully. The hall buzzed with shock, the investors' whispers a crescendo as Ilara stood tall, her tablet still projecting undeniable proof of her genius. Marcus was frozen at the podium, his face a sickly shade of white, his empire slipping through his fingers. Serafina, once the radiant centerpiece of his new vision, was a statue of panic, her eyes darting between Marcus and Ilara. The glamour that had defined her was crumbling, her silence louder than any words she'd spoken. Clara Voss broke the tension, her voice sharp. Mrs. Thorne, are you implying Marcus has misrepresented his role in this project? Ilara's gaze was steady, her tone measured. I'm not implying, Ms. Voss. I'm stating facts. I hold the original patents for this AI's core algorithms, filed 3 years ago. Marcus has been generous with taking credit. The crowd gasped, cameras flashing as reporters scrambled to capture the moment. Serafina, desperate to regain control, stood, her voice shrill. This is ridiculous. Marcus is the visionary here. I've seen how hard he works. Ilara turned to her, her expression calm but piercing. Ms. Dubois, can you explain the AI's neural architecture? Or perhaps its data compression method? Serafina's mouth opened, then closed, her face flushing. I'm not the tech person. I'm about the brand, the vision. The investors exchanged skeptical looks, Machen muttering, brand? We're here for results. Serafina's silence was deafening, her shallow understanding exposed under the spotlight she'd craved. Marcus tried to salvage the moment, his voice strained. Ilara, let's discuss this privately. We're a team. We were a team, Ilara said, her words slicing through his. Until you decided to erase me. Layla's voice crackled in Ilara's ear. The board's got the dossier. They're livid about the financials. Keep pushing. Ilara nodded subtly, addressing the crowd. I have evidence, patents, research logs, and communications that confirm my role. I also have records of financial discrepancies tied to this project. Victor Lang stood, his voice booming. What kind of discrepancies? Ilara projected a new slide, showing bank transfers to offshore accounts and lavish expenses labeled as consulting fees. These funds, drawn from Thorne Industries, were used for personal expenditures, not company growth. The hall erupted, investors shouting questions as Marcus's face crumpled. Serafina shrank further, her eyes wide with panic as she realized her role in the scandal. She grabbed Marcus's arm, whispering, "Do something!" But Marcus was paralyzed, his empire unraveling in real time. Ilara's calm authority held the room, her evidence irrefutable. Seraphina's silence, once a calculated charm, was now her downfall, her lack of substance laid bare. Layla's voice was triumphant. "You've got them, Ilara. The board's calling an emergency meeting. Marcus is done." Ilara met Seraphina's gaze, her eyes holding no malice, only truth. "You chose the wrong partner, Ms. Dubois," she said softly, then turned back to the crowd, her voice steady. "Let's discuss the future of Thorne Industries, the real future." The room erupted in applause, the investors' faith shifting to Ilara. Seraphina's silence was her defeat, and Marcus's dream was over. Ilara had taken the stage, and she wasn't stepping down. The hall was a powder keg, the crowd buzzing as Ilara's revelations hung in the air. Marcus stood at the podium, his hands shaking, his once commanding presence reduced to a shell. Seraphina, her face a mask of desperation, clutched her purse as if it could shield her from the fallout. Ilara, poised and unflinching, held the tablet that projected her damning evidence. Patents in her name, encrypted messages exposing Marcus's deceit, and financial records detailing his embezzlement. The investors were riveted, their skepticism now a roaring demand for truth. Clara Voss took the stage, her presence commanding silence. "Mrs. Thorne, you've made serious claims. Can you substantiate them?" Ilara nodded, her voice clear. "Absolutely. My team has uploaded a comprehensive dossier to the board and key investors. It includes my original patents for the AI, dated 3 years ago, and communications showing Marcus's attempts to sideline my contributions." She tapped her tablet, projecting a series of emails. One, from Marcus to Seraphina, read, *Ilara's work is solid, but she's not the face we need. You're the brand. Another, to a board member, stated, *Ilara's stepping back. I'll handle the AI rollout. The crowd gasped, the betrayal laid bare. Victor Lang stood, his voice stern. "And the financial discrepancies?" Ilara switched to a spreadsheet, highlighting transfers to a shell company linked to Seraphina. Over $2 million in company funds were diverted for personal use, jewelry, travel, a Miami penthouse. I have bank statements, receipts, and an audit conducted by a forensic accountant. Mei Chen's eyes narrowed. "This is embezzlement, Marcus. Did you think we wouldn't notice?" Marcus's voice was hoarse. "This is a misunderstanding. I can explain." "No need," Ilara said, her tone final. She played a video from a hotel security feed, showing Marcus and Seraphina checking into a suite together, time-stamped during a solo business trip. The crowd's murmurs grew into a roar, reporters scribbling furiously. Seraphina stood, her voice trembling. "This is a setup. I'm just his partner." "Partner?" Ilara's voice was calm but cutting. "Your name's on the lease, Ms. Dubois. You signed for the penthouse." Seraphina's face crumpled, her silence damning. Marcus tried to speak, but Clara raised a hand. "Enough. The board needs to review this immediately." Layla's voice buzzed in Ilara's ear. "They're convening now. You've got them, Ilara. Finish it." Ilara faced the crowd, her voice steady. "I built this AI to serve people, not egos. Thorne Industries deserves leadership rooted in integrity, not deception." The investors applauded, their faith in Ilara solidified. Marcus slumped, his dream of a new life with Seraphina shattered. The dossier was irrefutable, a digital guillotine that severed his legacy. Ilara stood tall, her quiet power now a beacon, her evidence the final nail in Marcus's coffin. As security approached to escort Marcus from the stage, Ilara met his gaze, her eyes holding no anger, only resolve. "You underestimated me," she said softly. "That was your mistake." The hall erupted, the truth setting Ilara free and Marcus's world ablaze. The hall was a storm of whispers and flashing cameras as security flanked Marcus, his face ashen, his tuxedo rumpled. Seraphina trailed behind, her glamour fading as reporters shouted questions. Ilara stood at the stage's edge, her tablet now dark, her evidence delivered. The investors and board members huddled in a corner, their faces grim as they reviewed the dossier on their devices. Clara Voss, leading the charge, called for an emergency board meeting, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Mrs. Thorne, please join us," Clara said, motioning to a private room off the hall. Ilara nodded, her steps steady as she followed, the weight of her triumph settling in. Inside, the board sat around a sleek conference table, laptops open to Elara's dossier. Victor Lang spoke first, his tone grave. "These documents are damning. Patents in your name, financial misdealings, and clear attempts to marginalize you. Marcus has violated his fiduciary duty." Mei Chen nodded. "The embezzlement alone is grounds for removal. And the AI, Elara, you're the true innovator here." Elara's voice was calm but firm. "I only want what's best for Thorne Industries." Marcus lost sight of that. Clara leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "We've seen enough. All in favor of removing Marcus Thorne as CEO, effective immediately." Hands shot up unanimously. Clara turned to Elara. "And all in favor of appointing Elara Thorne as interim CEO?" Again, unanimous. Elara's heart raced, but she kept her composure. "I'm honored," she said. "I'll lead with transparency and innovation, as I always have." The board's verdict was swift, a guillotine falling on Marcus's reign. Outside, the hall buzzed with speculation, reporters live-tweeting the drama. Elara returned to the stage, the crowd erupting in applause as Clara announced the decision. Effective immediately, Elara Thorne is the CEO of Thorne Industries. We trust her to lead us into the future. Marcus, now at the hall's edge, looked back, his eyes meeting Elara's. For a moment, she saw the man she'd loved, the dreamer who'd coded with her in a cramped garage. But that man was gone, replaced by a stranger who'd traded their partnership for fleeting fame. He turned away, escorted out as cameras flashed, capturing his fall. Serafina, abandoned by Marcus, slipped toward the exit, her gown no longer a symbol of triumph but a reminder of her complicity. The crowd ignored her, their attention on Elara, who stood tall, her voice resonant as she addressed them. Thorne Industries was built on a dream of progress. I promise to honor that dream with integrity and innovation. Layla's voice crackled in her ear. You did it, Elara. The world's watching. Elara smiled, her eyes scanning the crowd. The board's verdict wasn't just a victory over Marcus, it was a reclamation of her voice, her work, her power. As the applause swelled, she felt a weight lift, the future hers to shape. The Innovators' Ball, meant to be Marcus's coronation, had become her triumph, and the world was taking notice. The San Francisco night buzzed with the fallout of the Innovators' Ball, the city's skyline glittering as Marcus Thorne's world crumbled. Escorted from the museum by security, Marcus stumbled into the glare of paparazzi cameras, their flashes capturing his ashen face and disheveled tuxedo. The headlines were already breaking. Tech titan ousted in scandal and Elara Thorne takes helm after betrayal exposed. Social media exploded, with hashtag #BetrayalUnmasked trending globally, clips of Elara's mic drop moment racking up millions of views. Marcus slid into the back of a waiting car, his phone buzzing with notifications he couldn't face. Serafina, who'd slipped out moments earlier, was nowhere to be seen, her loyalty evaporating as his power did. "Where to, sir?" the driver asked, his voice neutral. "Just drive," Marcus muttered, his voice hollow. The city lights blurred past, a stark contrast to the darkness engulfing him. He'd lost everything, his company, his reputation, his future. The dossier Elara presented was airtight, her evidence of his embezzlement and deceit a death knell for his career. The board's unanimous vote to remove him echoed in his mind, each word a hammer blow. At his penthouse, Marcus poured a whiskey, his hands shaking. He scrolled through X, where posts mocked his fall. Marcus Thorne thought he could erase his wife. She erased him instead. A video of Serafina's panicked silence looped endlessly, her glamour now a punchline. Marcus's thoughts turned to Elara, the woman he'd underestimated. He'd seen her as a quiet accessory, not the genius who'd built his empire. Now, she was the CEO, and he was a pariah. His phone rang, his lawyer, grim-voiced. "Marcus, the SEC is launching an investigation. Those offshore accounts, they're tracing them. You need to prepare for legal action." Marcus's stomach churned. "Can we fight it?" "Doubtful," the lawyer said. "Elara's evidence is ironclad. You might face criminal charges." The call ended, leaving Marcus in silence. He stared at a photo on his desk, him and Elara in their garage startup days, laughing over laptops. He'd traded that partnership for Serafina's fleeting sparkle, And now he was alone, his empire in ruins. The weight of his choices settled like a stone, the first step of a long, painful reckoning. Outside, the city moved on, but Marcus was frozen, a fallen titan confronting the wreckage of his ambition. The world watched, not with admiration, but with the gleeful fascination reserved for a spectacular crash. Elara Thorne stood in the corner office of Thorne Industries, the city skyline sprawling before her. The CEO title, once Marcus's, was now hers, earned through her intellect and resolve. The board's decision had been unanimous, and within days, the company's stock soared 23%, investors rallying behind her vision. The media dubbed her the quiet genius, her story of reclaiming her legacy captivating millions. Hashtag Elararizing trended alongside hashtag Betrayal Unmasked, her poise at the ball a beacon of empowerment. Elara wasted no time. She overhauled the company culture, prioritizing transparency and ethical innovation. She met with employees, her voice steady as she outlined her plan. Thorne Industries isn't about flash, she told them in a packed town hall. It's about substance. We build tech that serves, not seduces. The room erupted in applause, her team inspired by her authenticity. Layla, watching from the back, grinned. "You're a natural, sis," she said later over coffee. "Marcus never stood a chance." Elara smiled, her eyes bright. "I didn't do this to beat him. I did it to save what we built." Her first act as CEO was to open an internal audit, ensuring no trace of Marcus's financial misdealings remained. She promoted Priya, the forensic accountant, to CFO, her expertise a cornerstone of the new era. Elara also launched a mentorship program for women in tech, her philanthropy now a public mission. "I was invisible once," she told a reporter. "I won't let others be." At a board meeting, Clara Voss praised her. "Elara, your AI roadmap is bold. Global scalability, ethical frameworks, this is what Thorne Industries should be." Victor Lang nodded. "You've restored our confidence. The investors are all in." Elara's heart swelled, but she remained grounded. "Thank you. This is just the beginning." Social media buzzed with her ascent, fans creating fan art and videos celebrating her triumph. A viral post read, "Elara Thorne didn't just take down her husband, she took back her power." Her inbox overflowed with speaking requests, her story resonating with women worldwide. Yet, Elara stayed focused, her quiet strength a stark contrast to Marcus's flashy demise. That night, she stood on her balcony, the city lights a reminder of her journey. She'd rebuilt her life on her terms, proving that true leadership wasn't about spotlight, it was about substance. Thorne Industries was hers, and she was ready to lead it into a future Marcus could only dream of. Marcus's penthouse, once a symbol of his triumph, was now a prison of his own making. Stripped of his title, his wealth frozen pending the SEC investigation, he lived in a purgatory of regret. The media frenzy had subsided, replaced by a quieter, more brutal reality: isolation. His phone, once buzzing with invitations and deals, was silent, his former allies distancing themselves. Serafina had vanished, her social media accounts deleted, her influencer status a fading memory. Marcus sat alone, the whiskey bottle his only companion, as he faced the wreckage of his choices. He scrolled through X, wincing at posts dissecting his downfall. Marcus Thorne's empire built on lies, toppled by his wife's truth. A video of Elara's poised speech at the Innovators' Ball looped endlessly, her calm authority a stark contrast to his unraveling. He paused on a photo from their early days, a grainy shot of him and Elara in their garage, laptops glowing, her smile radiant. He'd loved her then, her mind as brilliant as her heart. How had he lost sight of that? His lawyer's words echoed, "Criminal charges are likely." The offshore accounts, the lavish gifts to Serafina, the falsified expenses, it was all traceable. Marcus's phone rang, his lawyer's number flashing. "The SEC's moving fast," she said, her tone grim. "They've got your bank records. You're looking at potential fraud charges." "Can't we negotiate?" Marcus asked, his voice desperate. "Not with this evidence," she replied. "Elara's dossier is a prosecutor's dream. Start preparing for the worst." The call ended, leaving Marcus staring at the photo. He'd traded Elara's partnership for Serafina's fleeting allure, a mistake that cost him everything. He wandered to the penthouse's floor-to-ceiling windows, San Francisco's skyline mocking his fall. Redemption seemed impossible, but a flicker of resolve stirred. He'd face the consequences, not as the titan he'd been, but as a man forced to confront his failures. "I'm sorry, Elara," he whispered, the words lost to the empty room. His reckoning was just beginning, a long road of legal battles and self-reflection. The world watched, not with awe, but with the morbid curiosity reserved for a fallen giant. Elara's life as CEO of Thorne Industries was a whirlwind of board meetings, media interviews, and strategic planning, but she thrived in the chaos. Her leadership was a beacon, her vision for ethical AI resonating globally. The company's stock climbed steadily, and her mentorship program for women in tech drew thousands of applicants, her story inspiring a generation. Yet, amidst the success, Elara found solace in the quiet moments with her sister, Layla, whose unwavering support had been her lifeline through the storm. One evening, at Layla's cozy apartment, Elara sipped jasmine tea, the weight of the past months lifting. "You saved me, Layla," she said, her voice soft. "I was drowning, and you threw me a rope." Layla, curled on the couch with a notebook, grinned. "You saved yourself, Elara. I just handed you the megaphone." Elara laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in years. Their bond, forged in the crucible of Marcus's betrayal, had deepened into something profound. Layla's sharp wit and fierce loyalty had anchored Elara, and their late-night talks, once about evidence and strategy, now turned to dreams and healing. Elara noticed the warmth in Layla's eyes, the way her hand lingered when passing the tea. It stirred something new, a connection beyond sisterhood. "You know," Layla said, her tone playful but vulnerable, "I've always been your biggest fan. But lately, it feels different." Elara's heart skipped, her cheeks flushing. "Different how?" Layla hesitated, then took Elara's hand. "Like maybe we're more than partners in crime. Like maybe, I love you, Elara. Not just as your sister." The confession hung in the air, tender and terrifying. Elara's mind raced, memories of Marcus's betrayal fading against Layla's steadfast presence. She squeezed Layla's hand, her voice steady. "I've been scared to admit it, but I feel it too. You're my home, Layla." Their lips met, a soft, tentative kiss that felt like a new beginning. It wasn't the fiery passion of youth, but a deep, grounded love built on trust. They laughed, nervous but joyful, as they imagined a future together. "We're going to be the talk of the town," Layla teased. "Let them talk," Elara said, her eyes bright. "We've earned this." Their partnership blossomed, a quiet counterpoint to Elara's public triumph. They attended events together, not as sisters but as partners, their love a subtle rebellion against the world's expectations. Social media buzzed with speculation, but Elara and Layla didn't care, they'd faced worse storms. Their bond, rooted in shared resilience, was unbreakable, a love story as powerful as Elara's rise. A year later, Elara stood on the stage of the Next Innovators Ball, the same venue where she'd toppled Marcus. The hall was packed, the crowd a mix of tech giants, investors, and admirers, all eyes on her. She wore a sleek silver gown, her auburn hair glowing under the lights, her presence commanding. The MC introduced her as CEO of the Year, an award voted by the industry's elite, a testament to her transformative leadership. As she accepted the crystal trophy, the applause was deafening, #Elararizing trending worldwide. Her speech was poised, her voice resonant. "A year ago, I stood in this room as a shadow," she began, her eyes sweeping the crowd. "I was the invisible force behind an empire. Today, I stand here as proof that truth and integrity triumph. Thorne Industries isn't just about innovation, it's about impact, about building a future where everyone's voice matters." She paused, her gaze finding Layla in the front row, her partner's smile a quiet anchor. "This award isn't just for me," Elara continued. "It's for every woman who's been underestimated, every mind dismissed. We rise not by tearing others down, but by lifting each other up." The crowd roared, cameras flashing as Elara held the trophy aloft. Clips of her speech went viral, her words resonating with millions. Posts on X praised her. Elara Thorne didn't just win, she redefined victory. Her story, from betrayed wife to global icon, inspired podcasts, articles, and even a Netflix documentary pitch. She was no longer Marcus's wife. She was Elara Thorne, a name synonymous with resilience. Backstage, Layla pulled her into a hug, whispering, "You're unstoppable, love." Elara laughed, her heart full. Only because you're with me. They returned to Thorne Manor, now Elara's alone, its halls no longer empty but filled with purpose. They hosted dinners for their team, planned new AI initiatives, and dreamed of a life unburdened by Marcus's shadow. His legal battles continued, his name fading as Elara's sword. Serafina, a footnote in the scandal, had retreated from public life, her influencer career a casualty of her choices. As Elara and Layla stood on the balcony, the city lights a canvas of possibility, Elara felt a profound peace. Her victory wasn't just the CEO title or the award, it was reclaiming her voice, her worth, and her heart. She'd turned betrayal into triumph, her story a global phenomenon that inspired millions to stand tall. To us, Layla said, raising a glass of champagne. To us, Elara echoed, their glasses clinking. The future was theirs, built on authenticity, love, and endless possibilities. The world watched, not just for the drama, but for the promise of what Elara Thorne would do next. The end.